Hello guys and thank you for joining me. My name is Eugen and today I'm having a look at my first fountain pen that I ever purchased with a 14K gold nib. The fountain pen in question is Pilot Custom 74. I had this pen for more than 10 years now and I have used it quite a couple of times since then, and it has never disappointed me. For me, it has always been a very positive experience every time I use that, and it will most probably always be in my top 10 favorites. The color that I chose was this deep green with gold trims, one of my favorite color combinations. And if I remember correctly, I believe I paid somewhere around 120, 130 Canadian dollars at that time. I recently looked to see the prices, and seems like on Amazon at least the prices have gone up a little bit since then. However, looking on eBay, it seems that you can still import this fountain pen for around 110 Canadian dollars plus shipping, which is another 20 Canadian dollars, which in my opinion makes it a pretty good value considering you are getting a 14K nib. Going through the features of the pen, as you can see on your screen, the fountain pen has a very classical cigar shape, very simple, very clean lines, not a lot of features. The only things that pop on the pen are the gold trims, and on the cap, on the band, it says Custom 74 Pilot made in Japan. The clip is as well very simple. Doesn't look like it's stamped, at least the ball at the end, or at least they did a very good job at hiding the seams on that thing. And two round finials, both on the barrel and the cap. And that's pretty much it. Not a lot of features on the pen. The clip, it's actually pretty stiff but usable. And doing the shirt test, slides in a little bit. You have to force it a little bit, but it's not too bad. And once it's in, pretty much this is what pokes out of your shirt. And when you take it out of the shirt, it comes out very easily, very simple. I don't think you'll damage your shirt in any way or shape. Removing the cap, which is a twist cap, and actually can be removed very easily, just in one move. And the threads are very smooth, I really like that. Once you remove the cap, it will reveal, I assume it's a number 6 14K gold nib, which has some nice scrolling on it. Trying to get a better view here. There we go. And it says Pilot 14K with the gold and number 5. I guess it's a number 5 from what I can see. It says 5. And then is this nib specifically, it's a medium. The nib, it's a very beautiful nib from my point of view, and I also like the feed that it comes with. It's a translucent feed, plastic feed, but well designed, and I never had an issue with ink flow on this pen. The pen feels very nice in hand. I really like the girth it has and the length. I would call this a perfect length for me for an unposted fountain pen. And if you do need something a little bit longer, the pen does post quite nicely and securely, and makes it for a actually pretty good size. Maybe a little bit too long for my taste, but definitely usable. It doesn't back weight the pen almost at all, at least not in the position that I'm writing. And I mean, if you write in this position, I could feel it a little bit heavier at the top. Here seems to be fine. And here seems to be okay as well. So even capped, the pen feels actually pretty well, pretty balanced. Speaking of balance, posted, the balance of the pen is somewhere in there. And unposted, it moves towards the middle of the pen. Now, on my pen came with a Con 70, which fits very well in this pen. Pretty much fills in that almost that entire barrel. And well, I guess maybe unpopular opinion. I'm not too crazy about the Con 70, but it works and it holds a pretty good, decent amount of ink. Nothing wrong with it. The section where the barrel threads in, it's plastic on metal, but throughout the years that I never had any issues, and I've never seen shavings on the metal. So the machining is done very nice. Speaking of, those threads are actually very smooth, and towards the end it feels like it gets a little bit harder and then just stops. And you don't have to over tight this barrel. It fits in very nicely. The section, it's fairly short and comfortable. However, it's almost meets the barrel very well. You do feel those threads, but not in a bad way. It feels like they actually give you more grip on the pen, which is good. They're not sharp, and the step up, it's fairly smooth. Nothing intrusive. I like it, which makes this pen very comfortable for most of the grips. If you like to keep it higher, if you like to keep it lower, especially in tandem with the fact that it can cap very well, you can actually hold it from pretty high up if that's how you like to hold the pen. I'll be honest, it's hard to find any flaws in this pen. And I believe that the pen, it's injection molded. You don't really see any seams on the pen. The polishing is done very well. However, on the cap, right about, not on the cap, on the barrel where the threads are, since that part it's a little bit harder to polish, you still see a little bit of the edge where the two parts met, but you don't actually feel them. And that's the only place where I've seen those seams. Everything else is very well machined polished on the pen, and everything, it's perfect. Everything lines up perfectly. One thing that I didn't say about the nib is that the nib actually, its friction fit is not a nib unit, and you can actually remove it very easily. Just like that. And there you can see the fit a little bit better. I like that semi-translucent blue. Interesting shape. And I like the channels design on it. And the nipple, it's actually pretty solid. And the channels on it for the ink are really nicely done. To put it back is very easy. You just have to line up the underside of the nib about there, and then just push it back in. Like that. Simple and easy. I like the system. For today's drawing, I decided to use, Pilot ink as well. What I have here is the Pilot Iroshizuku Winter Shogun, or light coal gray. I'm gonna attempt to say the name. I apologize if I butcher it. Fuyu Shogun. Hopefully I said it right. Anyway, so Winter Shogun, I like the name. And this is supposed to be a very light gray, which should match the green pen very nicely. Now, like I said, I do have the Cont 70 on this fountain pen, and it's kind of I'm okay with it. Just I never really like it that much because pressing on that button is kind of hard. It's not an easy operating button, and you kind of have to hold it tight and make sure you don't drop it in the ink. So the thing with this one is you have to press it and quickly release it. So you press, release, press, release. Otherwise you won't fill up pretty well. So let me try and attempt that. And it's slipping out of my hands. And that's why I hate it. It's slipping out of my hands. I need to grab something to grip on. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. What I found useful is that using this will help you out quite a lot. This way the pen doesn't slip out of your hands. And after a couple of tries, you get some feel, even though the ink is a little bit bubbly. So what I tend to do is leave it a little bit and then try again. I will be right back once I get a better feel on it. Okay, I am back. I think I filled it up as much as I could have. It's still a little bit bubbly inside there. It looks like it filled, but still have a pretty good, decent amount of air in there. And the nib and the section clean up very well. Yeah, and that's why I hate Cont 70. It's slippery if you especially have oily hands and you need something to grip on, so this way you can hold it well, and at the same time when you use the button you have to press quite a couple of times, and you kind of aerate the ink as it fills in. It's not going to be a nice feel. And let's see how this nib writes. I'll be honest, I don't remember if I worked out the nib back in the day. Like I said, I've been having this fountain pen for quite a while. But let's see. It's been a while since I used that. Interesting. This feels a little bit... The line feels a little bit wider than what I remember. But the nib is very smooth, so there is a chance I might have done some work to it. I never draw with it, I mostly use it for writing. Well, this thing should be interesting. Yeah, reverse never really worked. I didn't really use it that much, but looks like I can do some fine lines, even though it's a little bit scratchy. I could probably do some work on the reverse, but I probably won't. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so looks like this nib is wider than I remember. Gliding above the page, it gives me a pretty fine line. But normal pressure is definitely a medium, not a fine. So chances are that I did work on this nib back in the day. Should be interesting when I'm doing the drawing. For today's drawing, I'm going back to one of my pictures to use as inspiration. I will try, or at least I was planning to keep it as simple as possible. As you can see from the screen, is just some buds of tiny flowers that I took picture of in my backyard, or at least in the park from my backyard. And yeah, should be very simple, just a couple of buds. Some of them are a little bit out of focus, so I'll probably use stippling. And I'm not 100% sure what I'm gonna do with the background. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do much with the background, but I did some radial lines as guidelines in case I'm planning to sort of do like a transition from darker to lighter. I don't know how this ink is gonna work on this paper. I never used this ink for drawing, but I'm curious how it's gonna turn out. As usual, I have no idea what's gonna be, and I guess we'll see together. Today I decided to change the format of my videos and combine the conclusion segment with the time-lapse. My hope is that I can reduce the length of my videos by a little bit. Please do let me know if you prefer this more or the old format, which allowed you to listen to the final conclusions without going through the drawing part of it if you're not interested. If there are no complaints, then I will continue with this new format until, well, I decide to do something new. Going into this drawing, I felt like I was cornering myself into some kind of failure. The ink felt a little bit too light on this paper, but as you will see eventually, it actually turned out okay. I was able to layer the ink, darkening the parts I needed to more and more with each layer that I have added. I did have to let it dry before coming back with a new layer, but it surprised me with how much I can actually layer this ink. In the end, it felt like I was working more with a pencil rather than with ink, and I actually really enjoyed the process and the end result. I think the biggest surprise with this thing, though, is that it seems to have some resistance to water. It does washes away a little bit, as you will see later on in the drawing, but not complete. Even after adding big blobs of water, the lines were still clearly visible. I have to try this with a fine or extra fine nib. I do like this ink and how it performs, and I'll definitely use it more in the future. Anyway, ink aside, I'm going back to the fountain pen. The fountain pen performed flawlessly, and like I've mentioned, it's hard for me to find any negatives on it. Everything feels so well balanced and built. Weight is great, posted or not, and the finish it's just perfect from my opinion. Oh, and that nib was butterly smooth. Again, it's been a couple of years since I had the pen, so there is a chance I have already did some work on the nib, but I honestly cannot remember for sure. If I do have to pick on one thing that I do not like that much about the pen, unfortunately it will have to be that Con 70 converter. The struggle is real when I'm trying to fill it, and without the help of some rubber mat or rubber band, that piston just slides out of my hands into the bottle when pressing on the button at the top of the converter. I much prefer the twist or slide up and down converters. Anyway, probably a little bit of not popular opinion, but unfortunately that's my experience with this converter. Other than that, I have no negatives to mention on this pen. from my perspective at least. One thing that I do wonder now is if I can find another nib to purchase as extra. I did a search but could not find anything. Anybody knows any places where I could just go and purchase another number 5 14K pilot nib? Over the years, my writing style has actually obviously changed a lot, and now I am very used to fine or extra fine nibs. And this medium nib just doesn't suit me as well as it used to for writing, at least. Drawing it's another story. I had no issues with the nib, and paired with this ink, it was a perfect match, I would say, and I managed to make it work quite well. But as you have seen from the writing sample, my writing is worse than usual with this nib. Oh, and a little bit of a horror story, but with a happy ending. Somewhere in between the recordings of this time lapse, I somehow managed to drop the pen. Yes, nib first on the floor. Most probably my heart stopped for a second as I watched the pen speeding towards the floor. I picked it up expecting the worst, but to my relief it looks like the angle of the nib was just off enough to allow the nib to slide on the floor as it touched it rather than take the entire force and weight of the pen. The knead and feed were a little bit misaligned, but that was an easy fix, and I'm happy I got so lucky this time. Anyway, that's about all I have to say about the pen, and I guess this is the end of the review. Please do let me know if you prefer this new format or not. And I guess I'll be ending the review here, which is complete with a drop test. And if you have any other questions, please do ask them in the comment section below, and I will try and to answer them as best as I can. Until the next time, I will let you watch the rest of this time lapse, and I hope you enjoy it. I wish you a good day and a good night, wherever you are, and all the best. Take care. Bye.